Hello, YouTube. No real intro today to get your attention, we're just gonna get right to it. I wanted to play with Leda's light greatsword, and it turns out its Ash of War Needle Piercer is very handy. Not only does it do decent damage, but you can use it to heal punish. It's also pretty good at knocking people off of ladders, so long as you're below them. It might work if you're above them, but the angling might be a little funny. But you can kind of spam this thing. And it chunks people, especially if most of the needles hit. I believe it shoots 10 needles that all form around your target, and then they all zoom inward and they chunk your enemy. For reference, I'm running this on a 68 dexterity build with the minimum faith. I think it's 19 for Leda's light greatsword. And I think in my physic flask I have plus 10 dex. So you can pretend I have 78 dex. It's true for many of these clips, and then about 19 faith, and it's still chunking pretty well. Not everybody has the heaviest armor, and it was a little inconsistent because it's probably based upon how many needles hit your opponent. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, duh, Gunches, of course. And so, I thought it was a pretty decent weapon. It's a light greatsword for those Dex Faith builds. It does alright damage, and its Ash of War was a very good utility to have in most situations. But every time I'd use the Ash of War and see it chunk or heal punish and finish somebody off, I'd always muse to myself, what would this weapon be like if it was on a mostly faith build with some dexterity? You could probably guess, its regular moves would probably do less damage, and its Ash of War should hit a good deal harder. I think it's got like B scaling in dex and like D scaling in faith. I could be wrong on that, don't quote me, but I believe the scaling is slated towards the dexterity and a lesser extent towards the faith, with strength being negligible. And so there's a lot of weapons out there that have, you know, an int or a faith requirement on a otherwise strength or dex weapon. And if you have a good amount of the magical stat, usually it'll affect the Ash of War. I'm reminded of the Ghost Flame, what is it called? It's the Deathrite Bird Poker. I think it's actually just called the Death's Poker. It only has like a D-scaling in intelligence even when upgraded a good ways, but if you have a good intelligence stat, its Ash of War hits noticeably harder. It feels a little deceptive. It's probably because the scaling feels like it's mostly for the weapon, and it almost feels like these weapons have a hidden scaling just for the Ash of War, but what do I know? That's just something I've felt. I'm sure somebody out there has the numbers, but all in all, it's a pretty good weapon, and I want to practice with light greatswords. I was very underwhelmed with them when the game, or when the DLC first came out. They did next to no poise damage, and they were, you know, hitting in twos, and you needed both hits to collide to poise break people, I believe it was. And so it felt bad because it was very easy to get interrupted. Now a lot of the heavies will poise break on the first hit, which holds them in place for the second hit, which makes the weapon feel so much better. I just need to get the timings down. There's a lot of times where you'll see me throw out a running R2, trying to figure out the timing, because there's a little bit of a wind-up on it, but the R2s feel like the best part of the weapon. I'm not in love with the light attack pattern, but there are situations where it's useful. The jumping light is pretty darn good. A light attack after a heavy attack is pretty good if you just need to get a poke in. If you're not dealing with a target with hyper armor, or another player with hyper armor, you probably will interrupt them. Anyways, it's a pretty neat weapon. I think you should give it a shot. I did not optimize this build, that's why I'm not showing its stats. I believe on this build I still have 15 or 16 int, because I was going to play with the Rolana light greatsword at some point, and the more I think about it, the more I don't really care to. I fought a good amount of players who use it, and they don't use it particularly well. It doesn't seem too good. It seems like an okay ganker weapon, potentially. It's got short-range, multi-swing beams. So, it might have a place there, but as an invader tool, it doesn't sound great. You can't two-hand it, which is what I like about the light greatsword. I like wielding a single light greatsword in two hands, and the paired weapon doesn't really lend itself to that. Maybe I'll change my mind. But hey, check out this thrusting shield user, dueling shield user. And that's why you want something that does multi-hits, and why you want the hammer talisman on hand. You never know. It could save your life. I would have preferred probably the Star Fist for getting those heavy attacks that hit simultaneously, but in a pinch, the Pata will do. And there's probably other better weapons. For one, I want to start running a grave scythe or maybe a regular scythe on my characters with probably kick or something on it to really get at shields. I don't know if that'll be better at breaking shields, but you don't always have the time to break a shield and capitalize on it when you're invading. There's a lot going on. You could just get absolutely blasted by that ulcerated tree spirit fire, die, kill the phantom, get 100k runes, host still dies, game gives you credit. It cracks me up. You know what else cracked me up? Here, short invasion. I'm invading Karl Marx. Look at that. He's already fighting an invader. And I realize because it is old Karl Marx, he has to go. He has to die. It's just better this way. And that's the most political I'll get on this channel. So rest assured, it's over. But hey, I'm a hero now, so that's nice. I included this invasion in front of us now because I wanted to show off its damage. And I've watched the footage a few times. I don't think the other invader gets in a hit when I'm using the Needle Piercer Ash of War on this guy. And I think it might be counter damage. I don't know. I assume it would just be pure holy, but look at that. 900 damage? Another 860 damage? Maybe the other invader did hit him during both of those hits, but those hits were awfully big. The guy didn't have the heaviest armor, but he was wearing what seemed like mage armor. I don't know what the resistance is on the deathbed dress. Maybe it's awful to holy and I'm just overinflating it. Or maybe they were a Source Seal gamer. Who knows? But it seems that in certain situations, if you got all the needles to hit on the Needle Piercer, it chunks. There's another hidden interaction that you may not know about with the Needle Piercer. It actually has its own unique status build-up. And you're going, what? There's no bar on my screen when I get hit, and there's no bar on my opponent's screen when they get hit. And you're right. There is no bar that you get to see, but there is a status buildup. And what the status buildup does is when it gets to full, it negates all temporary buffs and debuffs and status ailments from your foe. It's very interesting, and I think that's supposed to be in line with the fact that it's, you know, Needle Knight Leda's light greatsword with the Needle Piercer Ash of War, and if we know anything about needles in the lore of Elden Ring, it's that needles can cure, or at least stop the buildup of Scarlet Rot. It can also put off the effects of the Outer Gods. You can use it, a modified needle, to stop the Flame of Frenzy from changing the ending of your game. Though Melina will still hate you forever, you can at least not burn the world down to ashes. So yeah, Needle Knight Leda's sword removes status ailments. And also buffs and debuffs. It's all of it. It's very odd. At least that's what I've been led to believe. That's what it seems like it does. It doesn't seem like something you need to necessarily go for. But I suppose if you have somebody who buffs to high heaven, and you don't have 47 int or whatever for law of regression to disable all their buffs, then yeah, you can use Needle Knight Leda's good old Needle Ash of War. Anyway, we're getting into the part of the video where I'm going to be using Needle Knight Leda's sword a little less. I don't know why that phrase is hard to say. Needle Knight Leda. It almost feels like a tongue twister. I don't think I've messed it up yet. Maybe I have. Anyway, this person, very laggy. That's why I decided to switch for the multi-hit hyper armor Ferrari that is the Falx, because you can just rush people down with it. And if I wanted to use it smart, I would just do the charge and the double swipe and then the charge and the double swipe. But I wanted to hit the multi-hit. I wondered if I could get them to stay in place, if despite their lag, if I could accrue a lot of bleed buildup or possibly kill them. So I wasn't using the weapon optimally. You just want to use the charger over and over. The follow-up, maybe it's okay in PvE, situationally PvP, but look at that. Finally trap them. Slap them repeatedly. It looks so silly, that multi-hit swipe. It looks like you're going absolutely berserk. This was a fun invasion, so that's why I included it. This is a cannon war I participated in. This guy, I killed him in the very first clip of the video, I believe, where he was using the Rugula Bear Roar to try to knock me off a cliff. That seemed to be his intention, is he's just here to troll invaders, and so he realized that hiding as a prop in the environment and popping the Rugula Roar, the Bear Roar. I'm just going to call it the Bear Roar. I'm probably saying it wrong. I'm not remembering it correctly. Whatever. So the Bear Roar, he was using that to try to knock people off a cliff. I was playing way too carefully, not even knowing where he was, just going slowly. He popped his trap early, completely missed me. And then I hit the record button, because I try to hit record when I know the fight's about to start. Save on a little bit of storage for my poor little SSD. And, you know, I ended up killing him and showing you the Ash of War, and now we're invading him again, which is an oddity. You don't always get to re-invade people. And here we are having a cannon battle. He has the regular jar cannon, and I have the new Rabath's jar cannon, which seems to be a straight upgrade. Even if you do a little less damage with it, which I'm not sure, I haven't crunched the numbers, it seems terribly similar. It has a slight homing effect, which means he can start to back away, and you can watch this clip during my rambling if you want to run it back, and you can see that I have opportunities where I shoot him with the bolt, and it curves just enough that even though he's getting behind cover, it changes the trajectory enough that even though he's behind cover, he still gets hit. And it's very nice. But even if you're having fun with a cannon ward trying to take down a host, because climbing that ladder is probably suicide, he probably has rain of arrows or something else just as devastating. Check this, thread the needle. Oh, that's delicious. That's what we're here for. That's why we invade. It's little moments like that, thread the needle. But I have, you know, supplies. I have, I want to play smart. I know he has twice the amount of healing that I do, so I need to make sure I'm taking less damage. I'm keeping an eye on my surroundings, because I'm seeing that phantoms are coming in and out. There could be hunters about. And I see him here, I'm like, oh, here's an opportunity. Great. Oh, I missed. And I watch the compass, and I go, is he moving? Oh, he's moving more than I thought. And then we get the just soft lock on because we have the talisman that extends our lock on range, and he is done and dusted, and we win the cannon war. Isn't this such a great Leda's Light Greatsword video, you guys? Yeah, I'm going to be using just a little less for these last few clips, which unfortunately is the last half of this video. And I've only got 2 invasions left for you. They're a bit longer, but I like them. They were also a tad bit harder for me, but you'll see why. Generally more competent foes, and far more aggressive, and it goes to show that even as a casual invader myself, one who does not get the most time to practice, I do this for fun, and I try to make a little time to do the things in my life that I find are fun. That 2 guys who are working together outnumber you. And if they're working together smartly, ooh, can they be big trouble. They can cover each other very well. They can slash through each other when needed. You gotta always be on your toes while you're invading. And because of the consistent power creep that has taken place between even just Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring, and now it's DLC, people have more tools than ever that average Joes can just sweep you off your feet and decimate your health bar in an instant. And so you gotta be safe. And I say that because I'm not terribly confident in my ability to kill people, and I am not terribly confident in my movement, and though I hope to improve in the near future, and in the future to come beyond that, gotta be smart. And another reason why I'm also playing skittishly. I'm not coping, it's just a reality. Maybe I am coping. Neither here nor there. I was paying attention to the average ping of these invasions throughout this whole video. I had a third-party program called P2P Info, and you can connect it to Elden Ring, and it just uses the Steam servers, because I'm playing on PC, and it tells you what people's ping is to you. And it's pretty darn helpful, because I believe if somebody has 166 or more ping, and they mash roll repeatedly, they can't get hit. I'm pretty certain they have no frames in which they can take damage. They are all iframes, because that's just how their game lines up with your game when there's that much latency. This game really needs a ping filter. It doesn't have one. And I get a little jealous of those people who play on PlayStation. I don't own a PlayStation 5, because their connections look better. I've heard some of the high-end players gripe that, oh, there's a little bit of input lag with the controller, but that might be worth it in order to have just better connections overall. I'm not sure. It seems to be the overwhelming consensus between people who have tried both, honestly, that PlayStation connections are a bit better. But my main reason in paying attention to the ping for all these invasions is I want to try doing some seamless co-op invasions. That's now a thing. The seamless co-op mod has a pretty good player base, And from what little I've seen and heard, it seems that the mod makers have somehow fixed the little bit of extra latency that Elden Ring on the PC tends to have. And so I want to be a part of that. If I am not playing during prime time hours, so if I'm playing at any time other than 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. my time, which is very hard. I need to go to bed at just a little bit after 7, so I don't have a lot of that prime time window. I work very early. And so, you know, if I don't have a lot of time to play prime time, or if I'm not home to do that, you know, busy doing something in my life, I get a lot of 170 ping connections, which was my average, unfortunately, trying to play during non-primetime hours. And that feels bad. 170 is... You really want to be crutching on status effects and, you know, whatever you can get in, and trades to try to eke out damage. And that's not how I'd like to play the game, because whenever there is a good connection, it feels better. I feel like I can actually learn something. When the connection's bad enough, you end up double rolling because they can hit your phantom of where you were, and you have to just play it terribly safe and act like they have infinite range. But it doesn't feel like you have infinite range, but I'm sure there's times where you hit them and on their screen there's the phantom hit that's far away, so I digress. I know it goes both ways, but sometimes it sure don't feel like it. But yeah, I noticed that the average connection not during prime time was about 170 ping. When I am playing during prime time, I get to play with my fellow North Americans, and I tend to get about 90 or 80 ping on average. A couple 60s, I've had a few 10s, you know, people living in my walls, stealing my Wi-Fi, I guess. But for the most part, I run into people who have about 80 ping, which, while I wish it was better, is good enough. For what I've been conditioned. I'm like a battered housewife. I'm like, oh, he's always gonna have high ping, but I can fix him. I can do it. But this invasion was funny, and I decided to include it because I felt like I had to kill so many people just to get to the end of it. Because I show up, I kill the phantom, I run after the host, he flees, he gets a blue. This blue might be a better player than I am. This first little skirmish, he certainly seems like it. Results take time to measure, and stats need time to be recorded, so who knows? Maybe he got some lucky hits, maybe he's just as clueless as I am, maybe he's a far better player than me, could go either way. But, I felt like I was going to make some headway, get hit zapped with some lightning bolts. The other blue comes in, chunks me, my physic flask goes off, the one that heals you when your health is low, and now I'm just trying to reset and get my bearings, because I have no idea if this is going to turn to a slog, or we're going to have to go down the hill and fight the undead. Amidst the undead, that might be favorable. But now I am playing with silly Sword of Night main hand and Rakshasa offhand, because turns out Rakshasa in the offhand gets hyper armor. It's nonsense. Because it gets hyper armor, and because it's got pretty decent hits done, and it's not too slow, you can combo it with lots of stuff. Or you can, you know, set up existing combos you already know about. Like, you can hit somebody with offhand Rakshasa, and then do the Sword of Night Ash of War as a roll catch. And then after the roll catch, you can either hit them with the Rakshasa again, I think that's a combo, or you can hit them with a light attack from the Sword of Night, or a heavy attack with the Sword of Night. You get both of those options, at least, when you hit somebody with at least the final hit of the Sword of Night Ash of War. So we're getting down to the wire here. This guy might be a more, you know, intelligent player than I am, but we have a mix-up. Mix-ups are important. So I would recommend to you, if you're a new player, right, and I know I don't have a lot of room to speak since I still play like a newbie, have something fast available. Have a mix-up. You don't have to hard swap to it, though I would recommend you learn how to do that, because that is a very valuable skill. But it can be a soft swap. You can soft swap to a dagger in your right hand and do a running light or a running heavy if you need to get a last hit. It can be terribly helpful. Or you can have a dagger in your offhand. Or you could have a hatchet, or, sorry, the hand axe in your offhand. Lots of options. Light thrusting sword in your offhand. Straight sword offhand. Curved sword offhand. You have so many options. And now, we've killed this guy's phantom twice. We've killed 2 blues. He's the final one. We have killed 4 people to get to him. And he has this very funny tactic of getting up high and jumping repeatedly when I'm below him, which, if you understand how the jump iframes work, it makes, like, everything below the chest of your character, like, down to their stomach and their legs, they get, like, instant iframes on jumps. So it's probably an okay way to reduce taking damage. I have no idea if it was intentional or if they were just panicking, but this person is intent on not really fighting me and only giving in a swing or a spell if I am occupied with a friend. No idea why. Had they worked together a little more with their phantoms when I was being pressured, like just some running light attacks with that sick halberd they have, I would have been toast, dead in the water. But now, you know what? Gravity gets that honor. Steals my kill. Have a good one.